Hello, Hollywood Times. This is Judy Shields, by the way. We welcome writer, Emmy-nominated TV game show producer, longtime host, and author, Shelley Herman. Hey, Shelley, how are you?
I'm just fine, Judy Shields. How are you?
Good. Do you have any other titles to add to that? Did I miss any?
Well, I used to host a monster truck show. I mean, I don't know how exciting that is, but
That's cool.
no, I find that if you learn a little bit about a lot of things, you'll always be working. So that's what I've tried to do.
First off, before we get started, I have to say something about that typewriter behind you. Can you tell me about that?
Um, $5 at a yard sale. Can you believe somebody
No
sold?
way.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. It's an LC Smith typewriter, and it actually still works.
Does
Um,
it?
yeah, it's really cool. And I
Oh,
find people are fascinated with it. I have a very eclectic office. That's just one of my treasures. But another thing I have, totally off topic, of course, um, I bought a pair of trousers that Shirley Temple wore in the movie Poor Little Rich Girl. It's
what?
Yeah, it's the one where she's tap dancing with Alice Faye and Jack Haley, and you've seen her dressed in her little military outfit before, but it's my favorite Shirley Temple movie because it's the one where her nanny and she go off to New York, but the nanny goes back to get her purse in the cab and is hit and killed by another car. So Shirley gets to run off to New York and have adventures all by herself.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. How did you come about getting that?
I bought them from a Debbie Reynolds auction, and
Oh.
it has Shirley's name in it, and the hem is a little bit tattered from her tap dancing, and I just treasure it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I bet with your career, you've come across a lot of pretty cool things you may have wished you have, right?
Yeah, I think that might be something along the lines of my next project about finding out all the things that people collect about showbiz stuff and why it means so much to them.
How interesting and fascinating. That's such a great idea.
Do you
So,
have do you have anything like an old lunchbox that you had as a kid or?
oh yes, I have a lot of my Walton stuff. I love the Waltons, and I got to meet them all recently, and it was so amazing to talk to them. You know, the ones that I did get to meet, and oh, I meant a lot. And I spent a lot of time with my father, who I just lost last year. We spent a lot of weeknights watching them, you know, reruns, and that it was such an honor to meet them. And of course, I cried in front of them all because of that. But they're so loving.
My husband, who's an actor, Randall Carver, he was on the first season of Taxi, played a character named John Burns, but he did an episode of The Waltons where John Boy goes to the big city and they go out to an alleyway and they both get mugged. And of course, my husband's character, being brave and fearless, says, "Run, John Boy!" And he takes off and leaves John Boy to get mugged in the big city.
Wow, well, that's a great role to remember. That's one of my favorites was the Waltons, you know, and still having that old beat up lunch pail that I had. How about you? You have what's your most famous thing you have?
Oh gosh, I'm looking around. I've got some really good Disney collectibles here.
Oh,
Um, I'll tell you what I have that I cherish.
yeah.
And it wasn't so much a collectible, but it was a wonderful gift. Um, I I have a feeling that most women have two imaginary husbands. The first husband is the one that makes their heart race. He's the bad boy. He's the guy that you shouldn't be with, but you can't help yourself. And then there's the second imaginary husband who's like the great guy, and he opens the door for you and knows what you want for dinner, and he's just the guy that would like sit around the piano and play you songs, that guy. So my imaginary second husband is Kevin Kline. And I've told this theory to many of my friends, so that when my friend Janet Wood went to New York not too long ago, she went to a store called the Blue Tree that Kevin Kline's wife, Phoebe Cates, owns. And they saw this greeting card at her store that said, "Of all the husbands, I love my imaginary ones the most." Well, Janet cracked up and the salesgirl said, "What's so funny?" She told her my theory. And she says, "Well, why don't you buy the card? I'll have Kevin sign it and send it to her."
Way.
Yeah. So I get this. I'm looking at it right now. It says, to Shelley with best imaginary wishes, Kevin Kline.
Oh my gosh, that is so treasured. I love him too. He's such a heartthrob, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. I like him a lot.
Well, that's one you should have hanging right there so that you see it every day.
It's my inspiration.
Oh my gosh. Well, today we're here to talk about that poster that's behind you and the one that I have here too. Let's talk about your new book, My Peacock Tale: Secrets of an NBC Page. First of all, what is a page? I honestly don't know.
Well, the term comes from, back in jolly old England, when somebody who was an underling to one of the noblemen and would run their errands and draw their baths and such was named a page.
Okay.
In modern times, the page program started 90 years ago this year. It became an executive training program to allow college graduates to get their first entry-level positions into the entertainment industry. And it used to be all guys at one time. I mean, it was Regis Philbin, Chuck Barris, Gene Rayburn, Peter Marshall. Those were some of the famous people that came out of the program. But in the 70s, they started allowing women to be giving the tours, ushering, and be a part of this executive training program. With that said, if somebody wants to become an NBC page, you can fill out an application online and then send in a 2-minute video, and then your resume, then your CV. Then if they like you, they really, really like you, they'll fly you to either New York or Los Angeles on their dime so that they can interview you in person. And you could then get in this 18-month program to learn everything you can, meet everybody you can, and hopefully get your next step up the ladder so that you can have a career. Except the fact that only about 2% of those people get the interview, and it is easier to get into Harvard than to become an NBC page.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Is there an age limit for that?
There isn't an age limit, but when I started, I was 20 and I had not yet graduated college. Now they ask that you have at least a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science degree. So I would think that would put you in the early 20s before you start.
Yeah. Do they have pages that have been around for many years that are older in age?
Well, when I was there, we did have some people that were like in their late 20s that were doing the job. It doesn't pay a whole lot. So it's not like, whoopee, I'm a page. I can now sit back and relax for 18 months. But again, you're not there that long of a period of time. So, you're kind of in and out real fast. And to their credit, it's also the type of job that you can learn that you don't want to do this for a living, and you're still young enough to pivot and to do something else.
So it's like a stepping stone for someone who wants to get into the movie business per se, whether it be an actor.
Television specifically with this.
Television, yeah.
And in New York, they still have the page program as it originally was conceived. Here in Los Angeles now, because NBC Burbank no longer exists, it was purchased by Universal. You can still be part of the page program and just kind of bop around to the different divisions of NBC. And they have like rotating 3-month internships where you can learn various aspects of NBC Universal.
Kind of cool. That's, thanks for letting us know about that. So now I know what the job description is, what it is. So what inspired you to write this book about being a page back in the day?
I have a core group of people from 40 plus years ago that I still see monthly. What? We watch award shows together. We celebrate our birthdays, our parents' funerals, our weddings, all of life's big moments. We've all shared this the last 40 years. And we know each other's stories. We could tell each other stories. We've heard them over and over again. But when COVID hit and Zoom became something that was a marvelous way to open up the world to all of us, we connected with some of our friends who had moved out of the California area and started hearing stories. And for example, there's one woman who had a very pristine, wonderful experience with Freddie Prinze, and another one of the women who was kind of witness to his darker side. And putting those two stories together and kind of, connecting the dots in a few ways and thinking, well, maybe it's the end of the world. Maybe somebody should write all this stuff down for historians in the future. I just took a crack at doing it. I mean, I only thought smart people wrote books, so I never thought really to write one until my friends started sharing all of this information with me.
So is it just something you're typing on your laptop or from handwritten notes? Where does it all come from to put it on a book form like that?
I started doing a one-man show for my husband. And so I was already in the like sitting at the PC, not the typewriter.
Yeah.
And so I was already kind of in a writer head for doing it. And then when COVID hit and he couldn't do that, I joined a writers group on Zoom. And we had little assignments and we would present these little what became chapters in my book. And they kind of helped me along the way. We know what I was reporting it more like a journalist, and people kept saying, tell us how you feel. How did your friends feel about this? And then it started taking shape. And that's how it happened. And just when I thought I was all done with the book, something amazingly weird and wonderful and reassuring happened. And I actually called the publisher and I did one of those like, stop the presses. And they allowed me to add an epilogue to the book because something that happened in chapter 1 comes up again in this epilogue. And like my personal musical hero, Harry Chapin, sang about, all my life's a circle. And I realized that there was this wonderful theme that had emerged from all these stories. And that epilogue just kind of was the bow on top of the package.
There you go. Wow. Full circle, right?
Full circle. Yeah.
I read about the trip to see Elvis in Vegas that led you to get into the Page program. So literally breaking a leg. Explain that.
Okay. Well, I was working in the junior bazaar department at Sears. And it was a thankless job, but it was what I did as a survival job while I was going to Cal State Northridge. And one of the girls, and she was kind of the shy girl, her dad did TV repair and Elvis was one of his clients. And she just kind of said, like, does anybody want to go to Las Vegas to see Elvis? And it was like, yeah, let's. So the girls piled in the car. We had this wonderful road trip. You know, we all teased our hair. And we were wearing, I think we were wearing hot pants back in the day. So we were all trying to look like we were older than we really were because we were not 21 yet. And sat ringside to see Elvis. And if you saw the Austin Butler movie, it was exactly like that. The frenzy, the everything, the decibel level, the fans. I mean, I kind of went in there as like, well, I like the Beatles more than Elvis, so I'll just tolerate this. But I came away with such respect for Elvis and his effect on people and his showmanship. It was amazing. But afterward, 3 of the girls took off because they wanted to go party. And I sat with the girl who was kind of the wallflower because she got us the tickets. And I just thought it was kind of rude for them to have dumped her.
Yeah.
And we talked about our hopes and dreams because we did not want to be in middle management at Sears our whole lives. And I had mentioned to her that I had gone to a taping of the Midnight Special, which was a late night rock and roll show that was on NBC.
Yeah.
And I saw these people standing around in these ugly polyester uniforms who got to listen to rock and roll music all day for free and got paid on top of it. So I kind of thought, well, that would be a good job. I can stand around and do nothing. I'm perfectly qualified for that. So she said, well, my mom's best friend knows the head of personnel at NBC. And within 2 weeks, I had my job.
Wow. See? Isn't that something?
Yeah. And the rest of the part about the Las Vegas part is pretty juicy afterward, what happened to one of the other girls. It was very funny. You know, not everything stayed in Vegas. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, well, live and learn, right?
Yeah. And the breaking a leg thing was, it led back to Harry Chapin. I was hoping to get this great job working with the Comedy Store Players. I'd auditioned for them with a friend of mine. She didn't get it. I did. I had this dilemma of, do I quit the best job in the world to go try to do comedy at the Comedy Store. And that afternoon, I broke my leg. And I needed to stay at NBC for my health insurance. And, so it was like break a leg wasn't lucky for me then. But my good pal, George Glovna, he knew every summer I liked to see Harry Chapin at the Greek Theater. And he arranged for us to get, again, front row seats. And I got there, I hobbled over there on my crutches, and I put my leg up on this bar because it was an old plaster cast. It was really heavy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I kept it up there the whole evening. And the next day, Harry was on The Tonight Show. So I called George and I said, oh my gosh, we got to go backstage and tell Harry how much we like the show. And before I could even open my mouth, Harry Chapin looked at me and pointed to the cast and said, you were at my show last night.
No way. He saw that?
He saw it, and it had sparked a conversation. And so the break a leg was a good thing after all.
Man, some great stories. That's amazing. It's so great to have it put down so that everyone else can read about someone else's life like that had fun, especially the Johnny Carson show. I actually used to go to the show quite a lot in the late 70s and 80s. My ex-sister-in-law, we loved it. We were such crazy fans that we used to go to that one gate back where they would come out, and he'd have his white, I think it was a Corvette or something that he had. And we used to stand there like idiots all the time. And he would kind of look, get his car, drive away. He finally drove up to the gate to talk to us. And we both were like trying not to urinate on ourselves. It was just so excited. And, oh my gosh. And we were crazy fans.
Do you remember what he said?
Oh yes. He just kind of shook his head and said, do you not have a life? And we said, this is our life. We come to the show. We just wanted to meet you. And he was so kind. It was like, something that I'll never, ever forget, So I kind of read in this about, a secret about Joan Rivers, the feud between them. I just, didn't understand what was going on back in the day, and so what's the little secret about that?
Well, here's the deal. I wasn't there at the time, but I had access to some confidential stuff that I was able to look at. And I talked to Joan's longtime friend, personal manager, Dorothy Melvin, to try to flesh out the story, because it makes no sense why she and Johnny eventually didn't speak to one another. There was a memo that was circulated that was not an official NBC memo. Peter Lasalle, who was one of the executive producers of The Tonight Show, he said it wasn't official. He never saw it. And again, if he did, he never would have authorized it.
Yeah.
And in that memo, there was a list of names of people who could possibly replace Johnny when he retired. And Johnny had not even thought about retiring at this point. Letterman's name was not on the list. Leno's name was not on the list. It was just weird. But somehow Joan's husband, Edgar, got a hold of this, and rather than he and Joan calling Johnny directly, because Johnny owned the Tonight Show at this point, Johnny handpicked Joan to be his permanent guest host, the only female comic ever to guest host.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm sure she felt hurt and betrayed, but also, again, it didn't make a lot of sense. And the Tonight Show people had said to her as she was guest hosting, your material's getting a little edgier, and can you tone it down a little bit, because we have primarily, Midwestern sensibilities on this show. It's not all, fat Elizabeth Taylor jokes or whatever she was telling back then.
Yeah.
So I think she probably felt like this was her chance to break away. She saw no future at NBC, cut a deal to go to Fox late night to host her own show. And that's when what got dubbed the late night wars began, because if you were going to appear on Joan's show, you couldn't appear on the Tonight Show. And the Tonight Show people made that very clear. And if you had your choice, of course, you'd want to do the Tonight Show to plug your movie or your TV show. So it made it difficult for her to get guests. She had more pressure on her. And her show only lasted 7 months. And I mean, it was a slow death, because it just was impossible for them to try to do anything. whether it was right or wrong for Johnny to have done that, he was just trying to protect his turf. That's and again, when other late night hosts came in, Arsenio Hall, other people on CBS, Pat Sajak tried a late night show at one time. Johnny was just trying to protect his position, and that's what happened. And then subsequently, her show collapsed. A lot of stress was on her and her marriage, and her husband sadly committed suicide after all of this.
Oh my gosh. That's just terrible. Terrible. Yeah, because it just the two of them together was just like, what is happening? Us as viewers, it just breaks our heart because we don't know what's going on. Rumors are so terrible. The media can make it pretty bad.
Well, but the truth is, there's no secrets in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And Dorothy was in the room when Joan tried to call Johnny when the story was breaking, and he'd known about it, and he picked up the phone and then just hung up again. He never talked to her again. No.
Yeah, that's too bad. So of all of the famous people back when you were doing it, was there any that just like you were just so nervous you had to like turn away from, or you didn't know what to do?
I've been awestruck.
Yeah.
I got to work the 1977 Primetime Emmy Awards backstage, and I'm worked with a lot of people there. I admired Sid Caesar, Emergene Coca, John Travolta, but I guess the one that just really blew my mind was I was called to help Alfred Hitchcock get to his mark backstage. And I had done my senior paper on Hitchcock, and I really, really, really wanted to talk to him and make some kind of connection. And he was very slow and very old and a little overweight. And I'm holding half his body weight, carrying him backstage. And he turned to me and he said, "You're doing a very good job." And I said, "I did my senior thesis on you. Ask me anything about you." And he kind of smiled, that little mischievous smile. But I guess that was the one that I was like, I was really very starstruck by.
Oh, I can imagine. Like I said, you're just been one blessed and lucky woman for all these people that you got to see.
And blessed and lucky because of the friendships I've had with all my Page colleagues. I mean, it's very unique. We weren't a group of people who were backstabbers. These were very smart, creative people, and some of them stayed in the industry, some didn't. But we've all had each other's backs all these years. It's really nice.
It's hard as a woman because, we have friends from high school, we get married and have kids and our lives go on. It's hard to keep a couple of girlfriends friends. I mean, how are you guys friends for all these people for all these years? That's like a miracle in itself.
I guess because we're stuck with each other.
A good stuck.
I don't know who else will have us at this point.
Oh my gosh, that is just amazing. I mean, that's a story in itself.
It's guys and girls, gay and straight. It's never. That was the little in 1976. That was our melting pot. We didn't have quotas. We didn't have any of that stuff going on because we were all just there, and it was just very organic and very natural to have people from all different parts of the country, all different sexual orientations, even different education levels. We had some people from Yale. We had some people like me from Cal State Northridge. It was just everybody at a certain time in their life when they're just ready to pop. And we were all right there with each other.
The phone must have been a great invention for all you guys, because it's like we didn't have those cell phones way back when.
Well, I'll tell you what was so funny is there's one incident in the book that I recount. I was dying to meet Dick Ebersol, who was the youngest executive at NBC at the time, and he and Lorne Michaels put Saturday Night Live on the map. And I thought, if there's anybody I needed to meet so that I could have a brilliant career in showbiz, it would be Dick Ebersol. And his secretary, I would call, I'd try to get an appointment, and Dick's a busy guy. She's only doing her job. I wasn't getting an appointment. So one night I'm driving home and I'm listening to talk radio, and it's our next guest is Dick Ebersol. And I'm like, what? And I get off the freeway, run to a payphone, start shoving quarters in a payphone. And I came up with some like silly reason, to talk to Dick on the radio, like, what's Gilda like or something. And he got on the radio, and they said, caller, what's your question? And I said, hi, my name is Shelley Herman, and I'm a page at NBC Burbank, and I've been trying to get an appointment with your office, but your secretary won't let me get an appointment. So will you promise me on the air right here and now that you'll make an appointment to see me so we can talk? And he said, yes.
Wow. There you go. And the rest is history.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to pick your moments, I guess.
Oh my gosh. And that was a moment.
Yeah.
I also read that you were a contestant on the dating game. What was
Twice.
that like? Twice. What was that like?
The first time I did the daytime version, 1972, I was still in high school. And in 73, and the first trip was to San Diego. And ostensibly we were there because it was commemorating Cabrillo's landing in San Diego. And they just kept saying, and let's go on the roller coaster one more time for the dating game couple. And I was really kind of nauseous for most of dinner because of that.
Oh.
The second trip, I got to go to the Bahamas. I picked the guys each time. And so when the guy came out so I could see him, and Jim Lang says, you've won a trip to the Bahamas, I hugged the guy and I whispered in his ear, where are the Bahamas? I had no idea.
Oh
For those of you watching, it's south of Florida.
It's that island down there. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. So what would you like our readers to come away with reading your book?
I want them to I want them to have laughs, but I want them to kind of deep down look at themselves and realize that a lot of people have dreams. And I don't like that word as much as I like the word goals. And I think people have to figure out what it is they wanted to do that they haven't done, and figure out a way to do it and check it off their bucket list, whatever it is, whether it's something for a career, whether it's a vacation, whatever. But a lot of times I was told what I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to do. Get a job to fall back on if the showbiz thing doesn't work out. And I just realized that if you don't have anything else to fall back on, then you work harder at what you really want to do. So I would say for that, and especially for young women, because girls tend to get pigeonholed a little bit, think beyond what everybody else thinks you should be doing, and do what you want to do.
So well said. So well said. Especially for us girls and women, the way, and that depends how we're brought up, but that's such good advice. Really.
Well, it's never too late. I mean, yeah. I started this book about 3 years ago, and I'm 68, and I'm trying to be a first mother. Yeah.
Look amazing.
Oh, well, our little ring lights.
You're like 10 years younger. Believe me.
No, I haven't had any plastic surgery or anything. It's just
beautiful.
It's just doing hopefully what you love to do. That old, if you do what you love for a living, you don't work a day in your life thing.
Yeah. Good for
so
you.
that's what I hope people get out of it, is that they have a fun read. It's like a beach read. It's just really light. It's really, there's a lot of sex in the book. I should mention that if somebody's a little squeamish about that.
It's a book club. It's a book club book.
But there's some naughty parts, but it's something that's just a light, fun read.
Yeah. And how can our viewers find the book?
It's available on Amazon. You can order it at Barnes and Noble. Shopify has it, or I can come to your house and read it to you. There's many methods.
So we're gonna have a book on tape. Book on tapes, right?
I'm hoping after the first of the year. That's my goal.
Awesome! Wow. So what are you currently working on right now?
Well, there's a writer's strike and a Screen Actors Guild strike.
Exactly.
So what I'm working on is hopefully having, today at 1:00, a meeting with my literary agent, because I want to be all set to try to sell this as a TV series. I think.
Oh my gosh. You go. It will make it. It will.
I hope so. I mean, I kind of see it as kind of like Sex and the City meets Mad Men meets 30 Rock. It's nostalgic. It's again, a young girl trying to figure out how to navigate her way through trying to be a grown-up, and encountering bizarre, silly situations. And it's like Alice through the Looking Glass. It's just, I had all of these imaginary TV friends growing up, and now I was kind of in the room where it was happening.
Yeah, and who's going to portray you?
It's funny, a couple people have asked me that, and I keep saying me with good lighting. But the truth is, by the time TV shows are developed, I'm sure whoever is going to portray me or my friends, they're probably still in high school right now.
Yes.
So I don't know who it would be.
Well, you keep the Hollywood Times dot today. Let us know about that, and we'll keep welcoming you back when it becomes a series, so that we can push that out there for you. Well, we do appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and we will put your social media on our article about this great book of yours.
Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much.